The evening sky turned dark as heavy clouds rolled in, bringing with them a bitter cold that seemed to seep through everything. Ray Mendoza pulled his thin jacket tighter around his shoulders and quickened his pace. Winter had come early this year, and he wasn't ready for it. Not financially, not emotionally. Ray was a mechanic, had been for nearly 20 years now. He worked at Gill's Auto Shop, a small garage tucked between a laundromat and an abandoned convenience store in a forgotten part of town. The shop wasn't much to look at: peeling paint, a flickering neon sign that only half worked, and concrete floors stained with decades of oil and grease. But to Ray it was a second home. His fingers were rough and calloused, permanently stained with engine oil that no amount of scrubbing could remove. Those hands had fixed thousands of cars over the years, from rusty old trucks to fancy sports cars that occasionally wandered in when their owners got lost on the wrong side of town. As he walked, Ray could feel the weight of the empty wallet in his back pocket. He had just paid his overdue rent, handing over every dollar except one. One single dollar bill that would need to last him until payday, still 3 days away. His stomach rumbled, reminding him that he'd skipped lunch to stretch yesterday's groceries. "You're a fool, Ray," he muttered to himself, his breath creating small clouds in the cold air. Should have kept at least $5 for food, but he knew he'd made the right choice. His landlord, Mr. Chen, had already given him an extension twice. The old man had kids to feed too, and Ray respected him too much to ask for more time. The past 6 months had been the hardest. First, the pandemic had shut them down for weeks. Then when they reopened, customers were scarce. People weren't driving as much, and when they did need repairs, they went to the bigger chains offering special discounts that Gill's couldn't match. Ray shoved his hands deeper into his pockets as the wind picked up. His right shoulder ached, an old injury from his days working construction before he found his calling with engines. The doctors had told him he'd need surgery eventually, but that was a luxury he couldn't even consider right now. He passed by Pete's Diner, the smell of fried onions and burgers making his empty stomach contract painfully. Through the window, he could see families and couples sitting in the warm light, steam rising from their coffee cups. Last year, he used to treat himself to dinner there once a week. Now it seemed like a distant memory from someone else's life. Ray thought about his daughter, Lucia, away at college on a partial scholarship. She was the first in their family to go to university, studying to become an engineer. His chest swelled with pride even as worry gnawed at him. He'd promised to send her money for books this month, and he still had no idea how he'd manage it. One step at a time, he reminded himself. It was what his late wife, Elena, used to say when things got tough. Elena had been gone for 5 years now. Cancer, quick and merciless. The medical bills had wiped out their savings, forcing Ray to sell their small house and move into the cramped apartment where he now lived. But he never regretted a penny spent trying to save her. How could he? She had been his everything. As he turned the corner onto Maple Street, the wind nearly knocked him off his feet. Ray hunched his shoulders and pressed on. The temperature was dropping fast. The weather report had mentioned possible snow tonight, the earliest in over a decade. His mind drifted to the Ford pickup he'd been working on all day. The engine had a mysterious knock that he couldn't quite figure out. Gill had started to get impatient, suggesting they just replace the entire engine block, an expensive fix the owner probably couldn't afford. But Ray knew there was a smarter solution. He just needed more time to find it. "Give me one more day with it," he'd asked Gill before leaving. "I think it might be something simple we're overlooking." Gill had frowned but nodded. He trusted Ray's instincts with engines, even if business sense said to go for the profitable option. That was why, despite everything, Ray stayed loyal to Gill's shop. The old man still believed in fixing things properly, not just quick patches to get cars out the door. A group of teenagers passed by, laughing and pushing each other playfully, oblivious to the cold in their youth and high spirits. Ray smiled faintly, remembering when he had that kind of energy. Back when he and his brother Tony would race their beat-up bikes through the neighborhood, dreaming of the cars they'd own someday. Tony now lived across the country with his wife and kids. He'd offered to help Ray financially more than once, but Ray always declined. His brother had his own family to look after, and Ray was too proud to become a burden. They still talked every Sunday, carefully avoiding the topic of money. The lights of the corner store came into view, and Ray paused. His single-dollar bill could buy him a small coffee, something hot to warm his hands and body for the remaining 15-minute walk home. He patted his pocket, feeling the lone bill there, and for a moment he allowed himself to imagine the warm liquid and the brief comfort it would bring. A gust of wind cut through his jacket, and Ray shivered. The coffee would be gone in minutes, but the memory of warmth might last the walk home. He stepped toward the store, decision made. The bell above the door jingled as he entered. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, illuminating shelves of colorful snacks and drinks that Ray barely glanced at as he headed for the coffee counter in the back. The store was empty except for the cashier, a young woman who didn't look up from her phone. Ray reached for a small cup, the cheapest size available. As he filled it with the dark liquid, the rich aroma made his stomach growl again. Maybe he could ask for an advance at work tomorrow. Gil wasn't big on those, but he might make an exception just this once. The coffee warmed Ray's hands through the thin paper cup as he approached the counter. The cashier finally looked up, her expression bored until recognition sparked in her eyes. "Hey, aren't you the mechanic from Gil's?" she asked. Ray nodded, surprised. "That's me. You fixed my mom's car last summer. That old Buick. Everyone told her to junk it, but you kept it running." She smiled. She still drives it. Says it runs better than when it was new. A small flush of pride warmed Ray's face. "I remember that car. Good engine, just needed some TLC. He placed his dollar on the counter, but the girl pushed it back. "This one's on me. Mom would want me to." Ray hesitated. He didn't like taking charity, but the genuine smile on the girl's face made him reconsider. This wasn't pity. It was appreciation for work well done. He picked up the dollar and nodded his thanks. "Tell your mom I said hello," he said, raising his cup in a small salute before heading back into the cold. With the warm coffee in one hand and his dollar still safe in his pocket, Ray felt a little lighter as he continued his walk home. The world had a way of balancing things sometimes, small kindnesses appearing when you least expected them. His apartment building came into view, a 3-story brick structure that had seen better days. No elevator, spotty heating, and neighbors who played music too loud, but it was shelter. Ray had made it as homey as possible, with photos of Lucia and Elena on every wall, and a small collection of model cars he'd built over the years. As he approached the entrance, Ray noticed something unusual, a small figure huddled against the wall, shivering visibly even from a distance. He slowed his pace, squinting through the gathering darkness. It was a child. Ray felt a pang of concern as he drew closer. The kid couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old, wearing nothing but a thin sweatshirt against the freezing cold. No parent or guardian in sight, just a small, trembling body trying to find shelter from the wind. For a moment, Ray stood still, coffee cooling in his hand, single dollar in his pocket, and a decision forming in his heart that would change everything, though he couldn't possibly know that yet. Ray approached the child slowly, not wanting to frighten the small figure huddled against the brick wall. The boy, Ray could see now it was a boy, had his arms wrapped tightly around his knees, his whole body trembling from the cold. "Hey there," Ray said softly, crouching down a few feet away. "You okay?" The boy looked up, his face pinched with cold, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. His cheeks and nose were bright red, his lips almost blue. Ray guessed he was around 8 or 9 years old. "I'm fine," the boy stammered through chattering teeth. Just waiting." Ray glanced around the empty street. The temperature had dropped even further, and now tiny snowflakes were beginning to drift down. "The first snow of the season. Waiting for who?" Ray asked, keeping his voice gentle. "My mom," the boy said. "She works late. I was supposed to go to my aunt's house after school, but I missed the bus. Then I walked here because it's closer, but nobody's home yet." Ray felt a knot form in his stomach. The boy had been outside in this weather for who knew how long. Without thinking, he held out his coffee cup. "Here," he said. "It's still warm. Might help a little." The boy hesitated before reaching for the cup with trembling hands. "Thanks," he whispered, taking a small sip. His eyes closed briefly at the warmth. "I'm Ray," Ray said, settling down beside the boy but leaving enough space not to crowd him. "I'm Danny," the boy replied, clutching the cup like it was a lifeline. "How long have you been sitting out here, Danny?" Danny shrugged. "Since school got out. Maybe 3 hours?" Ray felt a surge of concern. 3 hours in this cold was dangerous, especially for a kid this small. "Do you know your mom's phone number?" We could call her. Danny shook his head. I tried to remember, but I couldn't, and my phone died. Ray considered his options. He couldn't leave the child out here. The temperature was still dropping, and those thin clothes wouldn't protect him much longer. But he also knew better than to just take someone else's kid into his apartment. That could cause all kinds of problems. Where does your mom work? Ray asked. At the hospital. She cleans rooms. Danny took another sip of coffee. She finishes at 7. Ray checked his watch. It was just past 5. 2 more hours in this weather wasn't an option. Tell you what, Ray said, standing up and brushing off his jeans. Why don't we go inside my apartment to warm up? It's right in this building. You can finish that coffee and we'll figure out how to contact your mom. Danny looked up at him, uncertainty clear in his eyes. My mom says not to go with strangers. That's good advice, Ray nodded, respecting the boy's caution. How about this? We'll stay in the lobby where other people can see us. There's a bench by the mailboxes. It's warmer than out here, and your mom will be able to find you when she comes looking. Danny seemed to consider this, glancing between Ray and the dark, cold street. Another shiver ran through his small body, making the decision for him. Okay, he said quietly. Ray helped Danny up, noticing how the boy's legs were stiff from sitting in the cold for so long. Together they entered the building's lobby, a small worn space with cracked linoleum flooring, a wall of dented mailboxes, and a bench that had seen better days. But it was warm, and that was all that mattered. They sat on the bench, and Ray watched as color slowly returned to Danny's face. The building's ancient heater clanked and groaned, but pumped out enough warmth to take the edge off the cold. Better? Ray asked. Danny nodded, finishing the last of the coffee. Thanks, no problem. So Danny, what grade are you in? 4th, Danny replied. At Lincoln Elementary, Ray nodded. That's a good school. My daughter went there years ago. You have a daughter? Danny asked, seeming more relaxed now that he was warming up. Yep. Lucia. She's in college now, studying engineering. What's engineering? Ray smiled. It's about building things, solving problems. She wants to design bridges and buildings someday. That sounds cool, Danny said. Then his stomach growled loudly and he looked embarrassed. Ray felt his $1 bill in his pocket. He'd been saving it for tomorrow's bus fare to work, but... When's the last time you ate? Ray asked. Danny shrugged again. Lunch at school. But I didn't like it much. It was fish sticks. Ray stood up. Wait here. Don't move, okay? I'll be right back. Where are you going? Danny looked worried. Just to the vending machine around the corner. 1 minute, I promise. Ray hurried to the building's vending machine, an old model that still somehow worked despite frequent jams and outages. He surveyed the options, chips, candy bars, crackers. Not exactly a proper meal, but better than nothing. He selected a packet of peanut butter crackers that offered the most substance for the money, fed his last $1 into the machine, and watched as the metal coil slowly pushed the package forward. For a moment, it looked like it might get stuck, and Ray held his breath. But then the package dropped with a satisfying thunk into the collection tray. When Ray returned to the lobby, he found Danny exactly where he'd left him. But now the boy was drawing shapes with his finger on the fogged-up window beside the bench. Here you go, Ray said, handing over the crackers. It's not much, but it should help until your mom comes. Danny's face lit up. Thank you. He tore open the package eagerly and offered one to Ray. Do you want one? Ray's stomach rumbled, but he shook his head. Nah, you go ahead. I already ate. The lie came easily, a small one to preserve the boy's dignity. As Danny ate, Ray tried to think of what to do next. The boy needed to contact his mother, and they couldn't just wait indefinitely in the lobby. Danny, does your aunt live nearby? The one you were supposed to go to after school? Danny nodded, his mouth full of crackers. After swallowing, he said, She lives in the blue apartments on Oak Street. Ray knew the place. It was about 15 blocks away. Too far to walk in this weather, especially for a kid who was already cold and tired. Do you know her phone number? Maybe we can call her. Danny's face scrunched up in concentration. I think it starts with 555, but I don't remember the rest, Ray sighed. Not much help there. He didn't have a phone himself, another expense he'd had to cut, so they couldn't even try random combinations. Mrs. Patel, one of Ray's neighbors, entered the lobby then, struggling with grocery bags. She was an elderly woman who lived on the 2nd floor and sometimes brought Ray homemade food, claiming she always cooked too much for just herself. Hello, Ray, she said, then noticed Danny. And who is this young man? Ray explained the situation briefly. Mrs. Patel's face showed immediate concern. The poor child. Come upstairs, both of you. I have a phone you can use, and I just made fresh soup. Ray hesitated. We're waiting for his mom. She might come looking here. Mrs. Patel waved a dismissive hand. I'll leave a note on the front door with my apartment number. No one should sit in this drafty lobby when there's warm food upstairs. Danny looked at Ray hopefully, the prospect of hot soup clearly appealing. Ray couldn't deny that it sounded good to him too. All right, he agreed. Thank you, Mrs. Patel. In Mrs. Patel's small but immaculate apartment, Danny was wrapped in a colorful blanket and given a bowl of vegetable soup that steamed invitingly. Ray accepted a bowl too after Mrs. Patel insisted. Now, she said, placing her old-fashioned landline phone on the coffee table. Let's figure out how to reach your mother, young man. Danny, looking considerably happier with warm food in his stomach, said, I remember the hospital's name. It's St. Mary's. Mrs. Patel dialed the hospital's main number and after explaining the situation to several people, finally reached someone in the housekeeping department. A few minutes later, Danny was speaking to his very worried mother. Ray watched as relief washed over the boy's face. I'm okay, Mom, really. Mr. Ray helped me and now I'm at his neighbor's apartment. Yes, it's warm. Yes, I ate something. Danny looked at the soup bowl. It's really good soup. After the call ended, Danny reported, Mom's coming right away. Her friend is giving her a ride. She'll be here in 20 minutes. Mrs. Patel nodded approvingly. Good. Time for seconds then. She refilled both their bowls despite Ray's protests that one was plenty. As they ate, Mrs. Patel kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking Danny about school and telling stories about her grandchildren who lived in another state. Ray mostly listened, content to enjoy the warmth and food, thinking about how differently this evening had turned out from what he'd expected. When the buzzer rang announcing Danny's mother's arrival, Ray felt an odd mixture of relief and something like disappointment. He'd enjoyed the boy's company and Mrs. Patel's kindness, a welcome change from his usually solitary evenings. They went downstairs together, where a young woman in a hospital housekeeping uniform was waiting, her face tight with worry. When she saw Danny, she rushed forward, dropping to her knees to embrace him. Danny, I was so scared when you weren't at your aunt's. She pulled back to look at him. Are you okay? Are you warm enough? Did you eat? I'm fine, Mom, Danny said, a hint of embarrassment in his voice at her fussing. Mr. Ray helped me. He gave me his coffee and bought me crackers with his last $1. And Mrs. Patel gave us soup. Danny's mother turned to Ray, her eyes full of tears. Thank you for taking care of my son. I don't know how to repay you. Ray felt his face grow warm. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same. But as he looked at Danny's grateful face and the relief in his mother's eyes, Ray knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would have spent their last $1 on a stranger's child. Not everyone would have cared, and somehow, despite having emptied his wallet completely, Ray felt richer than he had in months. Danny's mother wiped away tears as she shook Ray's hand. I'm Ana Morales, she said. I can't thank you enough for helping my son. Ray Mendoza, he replied, feeling a little awkward with the gratitude. Really, it wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal? Anna shook her head. You spent your last $1 on my child. Danny told me everything. Her eyes were warm but fierce. That means a lot. Mrs. Patel, who had been watching the exchange with approval, chimed in. Ray is a good man. Always helping people, fixing things around the building for free. Ray felt his face grow hot. Mrs. Patel exaggerates. I do no such thing, the older woman said firmly. Last month, when my sink leaked, the landlord said it would be days before a plumber could come. Ray fixed it that same evening. Anna looked at Ray with new interest. You're handy with more than just cars, then? Ray shrugged. Basic stuff. Plumbing, electrical work. You pick things up over the years. Danny, who had been leaning against his mother, piped up. He's a mechanic. He fixes cars at a shop. Gill's Auto, Ray added. Small place, but we do good work. Anna's eyes lit up. Gill's? Over on Elmwood Avenue? Ray nodded, surprised. You know it? My car's been making this horrible noise for weeks, Anna said. I've been putting off taking it in because the places around my neighborhood are so expensive. But I drive by Gill's on my way to work. I just wasn't sure. Bring it by, Ray said without hesitation. I can take a look. We're honest about our pricing. I will, Anna said. Then after a moment's hesitation, I'd like to repay you for helping Danny. Maybe I could make you dinner sometime. Before Ray could respond, Mrs. Patel clapped her hands. Wonderful idea. Ray eats too many frozen meals. A home-cooked dinner would do him good. Ray shot Mrs. Patel a look but couldn't help smiling. That's really not necessary, but thank you. I insist, Anna said. She pulled out her phone. Can I get your number? For the car. And dinner. They exchanged numbers and Ray felt an unexpected flutter in his chest as Anna programmed his contact information. It had been years since he'd given his number to a woman for anything other than car-related business. After Anna and Danny left, promising to be in touch soon, Mrs. Patel gave Ray a knowing look. What? Ray asked, pretending not to understand. She's pretty, Mrs. Patel said simply, and kind. She was just being grateful, Ray muttered, heading for his own apartment. We'll see, Mrs. Patel called after him. Ray shook his head, but he was smiling as he unlocked his door. The apartment felt colder and emptier than usual, though maybe that was just in comparison to Mrs. Patel's warm, fragrant home. He went to bed that night with an empty wallet but a full heart, falling asleep more easily than he had in months. The next morning, Ray woke to his alarm feeling oddly refreshed. Then he remembered he had no bus fare to get to work. His last dollar had gone to Danny's crackers. He'd have to walk. It was a long trek, nearly 3 miles, but he'd managed it before. He dressed quickly, adding an extra layer for the cold, and headed out earlier than usual. The snow from the night before had dusted the city with white, making even the dingiest corners look briefly clean and bright. Ray's breath clouded before him as he walked, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He was about halfway to the shop when a car honked beside him. Ray looked up to see a small blue Honda pulling to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Anna's face. Ray, what are you doing walking in this cold? Ray hesitated, embarrassed. Heading to work, Anna frowned. Get in. I'll drive you. You don't have to. It's freezing out and I'm going that way anyway. Danny's with his aunt today, she added, answering his unasked question. After a moment's hesitation, Ray climbed in, grateful for the car's warmth. Thanks, he said simply. Anna smiled at him before pulling back into traffic. Happy to help. Besides, now you can check out that noise my car's making. Ray listened as the engine ran. I hear it. Sounds like it could be a loose belt. Nothing major, really? Anna's relief was visible. I was afraid it might be the transmission or something expensive. Doesn't sound like it, Ray assured her. Bring it by the shop today if you can. I'll squeeze you in. They chatted easily for the rest of the short drive. Ray learned that Anna had moved to the city 3 years ago after her divorce. That she worked 2 jobs, the hospital cleaning position and weekend shifts at a grocery store, and that Danny was her only child. It's not easy, she admitted. But we're making it work. Danny's a good kid. He is, Ray agreed, thinking of how the boy had offered to share his crackers. When they reached Gil's auto shop, Anna pulled up to the entrance. What time do you finish today? Around 6, Ray said. I'll try to bring the car by around 5 before I pick up Danny. She hesitated. And about that dinner? How about Friday night? Ray found himself nodding. Friday sounds good, she smiled. It's a date then. As he watched her drive away, Ray realized she'd used the word date. He hadn't been on a date since Elena. The thought was both terrifying and strangely exciting. Gil was already in the shop, coffee in hand, looking surprised to see Ray arrive in a car. Friend of yours? He asked, nodding toward Anna's departing Honda. Customer, Ray said, then added, Sort of. It's complicated. Gil raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Speaking of customers, that Ford pickup from yesterday, the owner called. Says he can't afford a new engine block. Wants to know our best price for just getting it running again. Ray hung up his jacket. I still think it's something simpler. Let me spend the morning on it. Gil nodded. All right. But if you can't find it by lunch, we move on. Shop's too quiet to waste time. Ray headed straight for the Ford. He'd been thinking about the mysterious knock all night, an idea forming in the back of his mind. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. 3 hours later, Ray emerged from under the hood, grease-stained but triumphant. Found it, he called to Gil. Loose harmonic balancer, causing the timing to slip just enough to knock. We can fix it for under 200 parts and labor. Gil looked impressed despite himself. The dealer would have charged 10 times that for a new engine, and wouldn't have fixed the actual problem, Ray added. I'll call the owner. Gil paused. Good work, Ray. Not many mechanics would have kept looking for the real issue. The compliment warmed Ray more than he expected. Gil wasn't one for praise. The rest of the day passed quickly. Ray fixed 2 more cars and gave estimates on 3 others. When 5 o'clock approached, he found himself watching the door, waiting for Anna. She arrived at 5:15, apologizing for being late. Hospital was short-staffed today. Gil raised an eyebrow when Ray introduced Anna as a friend, but said nothing as Ray popped the hood of her Honda. Just as he'd suspected, the noise was coming from a loose serpentine belt. Easy fix, he told her. 20 minutes tops. While Ray worked, Anna chatted with Gil. Ray could hear them talking but couldn't make out the words over the shop's radio and the sound of his tools. Whatever they were discussing, Gil seemed unusually animated. When Ray finished, he wiped his hands and closed the hood. All set. Should be quiet now. How much do I owe you? Anna asked, reaching for her purse. Ray looked at Gil, who shrugged. Consider it a friends and family discount. No charge, Anna shook her head. I can't accept that. You have to let me pay something. Tell you what, Gil said. We'll call it even if you bring by some of those empanadas you were telling me about. Anna laughed. Deal, I'll bring them Friday. She turned to Ray. Still on for dinner? Looking forward to it, Ray replied, aware of Gil's curious look. After Anna left, Gil cleared his throat. Nice woman. She mentioned you helped her kid out yesterday. Ray nodded, not offering details. Also said you're good with plumbing and electrical. That true? Basic stuff, Ray said, echoing what he'd told Anna. Gil seemed to be considering something. You know, I've been thinking about expanding the shop. Maybe offer home repair services during slow car times. Keep the bays busy, bring in some extra cash. Ray looked up, surprised. Seriously? Worth thinking about, Gil said. Especially if we already have someone with the skills. He clapped Ray on the shoulder. Just an idea. We'll talk more later. Lock up when you're done? After Gil left, Ray stood in the quiet shop, mind spinning. Home repairs? It wasn't something he'd considered, but it made a certain kind of sense. He already did odd jobs around his building when things broke. As he cleaned his tools and prepared to close for the day, Ray realized his empty wallet didn't seem quite so heavy anymore. Something had shifted, not just his circumstances, but something inside him. A kind of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He locked the shop and stepped outside into the cold evening. But this time, instead of dreading the long walk home, Ray found himself looking forward to it. Each step would give him more time to think about new possibilities, for the shop, for himself, and maybe even for a future that suddenly seemed a little brighter than before. Friday evening came faster than Ray expected. The week had flown by in a blur of oil changes and brake repairs, with Gil dropping hints about the home repair service idea whenever they had a quiet moment. Ray found himself warming to the concept, mentally listing all the household jobs he could handle competently. Now, standing in front of his bathroom mirror, Ray frowned at his reflection. He'd trimmed his beard and combed his hair neatly, but his nicest shirt, a blue button-down that Lucia had given him for his birthday 2 years ago, looked worn around the collar. It was the best he had, though, so it would have to do. His phone buzzed with a text from Anna. Still on for 7? Nothing fancy, just home cooking. Ray smiled and texted back. Looking forward to it. Need me to bring anything? The reply came quickly. Just yourself. Danny's excited to see you again. That made Ray pause. He hadn't considered that Danny would be part of the dinner. It made sense, of course, Anna was a single mom, but somehow he'd imagined, well, something more like a date. The realization that he'd been thinking of it that way made him both nervous and a little disappointed. Still, he found himself humming as he left his apartment, a small bunch of wildflowers he'd picked from the patch behind the shop clutched awkwardly in his hand. Mrs. Patel caught him in the hallway and gave an approving nod at the flowers. Very nice, she said with a knowing smile. Have a good evening, Ray. Anna lived in a small duplex about 20 minutes bus ride from Ray's place. He'd splurged on the fare, not wanting to show up sweaty from walking. The neighborhood was similar to his, working class, a little worn around the edges, but with small touches of pride, potted plants on stoops, clean sidewalks, Children's bikes chained neatly to railings. Anna's half of the duplex had a small concrete porch with a welcome mat and a child's drawing of a rainbow taped to the front window. Ray took a deep breath before knocking. The door flew open almost immediately, revealing Danny's grinning face. "Mr. Ray, you came. I said I would, didn't I?" Ray replied, smiling at the boy's enthusiasm. Anna appeared behind her son, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She'd changed from the practical clothes Ray had seen her in before, wearing a simple dress with her hair down around her shoulders. The sight made Ray's throat tighten unexpectedly. "Come in," she said warmly. "Dinner's almost ready." Ray stepped inside, feeling suddenly shy. He thrust the wildflowers toward her. "These are for you. Nothing fancy, but—" Anna's face lit up. "They're beautiful." "Thank you." She took them gently. "Let me put these in water." The duplex was small but spotlessly clean, with secondhand furniture arranged cozily. Family photos lined the walls, mostly of Danny at various ages, but some older pictures too, showing people who had Anna's eyes or smile. "Mom made her special chicken," Danny announced, tugging Ray toward the kitchen. "It's the best." The kitchen was tiny but filled with mouth-watering smells. A pot bubbled on the stove and something in the oven sent out waves of garlicky goodness. "It smells amazing," Ray said honestly. Anna smiled, placing the wildflowers in a drinking glass, apparently the closest thing to a vase she owned. "My grandmother's recipe. Nothing complicated, just good ingredients and time." They ate at a small table in the corner of the living room, the conversation flowing more easily than Ray had expected. Danny dominated much of the talk, eager to tell Ray about school, his friends, and a science project about growing beans in different conditions. "The ones in the dark got all long and white," Danny explained, gesturing with his fork. "They were reaching for light. Plants need light like people need food." "Smart observation," Ray said, impressed. Anna watched their interaction with a soft expression. "Danny's teacher says he has a scientific mind, always asking why things work the way they do." "That's how mechanics start too," Ray told Danny. "Always wondering why things work or don't work." "Could you teach me about cars?" Danny asked eagerly. "Mom's car made that funny noise, but you fixed it." "That was an easy one," Ray said. "But sure, sometime I could show you some basics. If your mom's okay with it," he added, glancing at Anna. She nodded. "I think that would be wonderful. Danny could use a man's influence sometimes." A shadow crossed her face briefly. "His father isn't involved." Ray sensed the weight behind those words but didn't press. Instead, he helped himself to more of the delicious chicken and rice, complimenting Anna on the meal. After dinner, Danny begged to show Ray his room. It was small but packed with books, model airplanes, and a collection of rocks and pine cones on the windowsill. What caught Ray's eye, though, was a small toolbox in the corner. "That's my fix-it kit," Danny explained proudly. "I fixed Mom's reading lamp and the wobbly kitchen chair." "No kidding?" Ray examined the lamp on Danny's bedside table. The wiring had been neatly repaired. "This is good work, buddy," Danny beamed. "Mom said I'm handy like my grandpa was." When Danny went to brush his teeth before bed, Ray helped Anna wash the dishes. They stood side by side at the small sink, their shoulders occasionally touching. "He's a great kid," Ray said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with him." Anna sighed. "I try. It's not always easy doing it alone." "His dad?" Ray asked cautiously. Anna handed him a plate to dry. "Left when Danny was 4. Decided family life wasn't for him. Sends a birthday card sometimes, but that's about it." Ray felt a surge of anger toward this unknown man who'd walked away from his responsibilities, from this wonderful kid and his hard-working mother. "Danny doesn't remember much about him," Anna continued. "Maybe that's a blessing." "Maybe," Ray agreed. "My wife died 5 years ago. Cancer. Sometimes I think it might have been easier for Lucia if she'd never known her mother, never had to lose her." He stopped, surprised at himself for sharing something so personal. Anna touched his arm gently. "I'm so sorry, Ray, but I don't think that's true. The love we have, even when it ends in loss, it shapes us, makes us who we are." Ray looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. Something passed between them. Understanding, connection, possibility. The moment was broken by Danny running back into the kitchen in his pajamas. "All clean," he announced, showing his teeth. Anna laughed. "Good job. Now say goodnight to Mr. Ray, it's bedtime." After putting Danny to bed, Anna rejoined Ray in the living room with 2 cups of coffee. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their children, their work, their struggles and small victories. Ray told her about Gil's idea to expand the shop's services. "That sounds perfect for you," Anna said. "You clearly have the skills." "Maybe," Ray said. "I'm still figuring out if it could really work." "Well, I know at least 6 people at the hospital who would hire you for repairs in a heartbeat," Anna told him. Everyone's always complaining about how hard it is to find honest repair people. The conversation eventually turned to Anna's dreams, taking classes at the community college, maybe becoming a medical assistant someday. The hours would be better and the pay, she explained. "Give Danny and me a bit more security." When Ray finally looked at his watch, he was shocked to see it was nearly midnight. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "You must be tired after working all day." At the door, there was an awkward moment where neither seemed sure how to say goodbye. Finally, Anna leaned up and kissed his cheek softly. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "It's been a long time since I enjoyed an evening so much." Walking to the bus stop under a clear, starry sky, Ray felt lighter than he had in years. The evening played back in his mind. Danny's excited chatter, Anna's laugh, the way she'd listened when he talked about Elena. For the first time since his wife died, Ray could imagine a different future than the lonely one he'd resigned himself to. The next morning, Ray arrived at Gil's early, bursting with energy despite the late night. Gil noticed immediately. "You look different," he observed. "Good different." "Something happen?" Ray shrugged, trying to hide his smile. "Just had a good night's sleep." Gil clearly didn't believe him but let it go. "I got a call this morning. Mrs. Santiago, you know, the lady with the ancient Buick, says her dishwasher's making a weird noise. Told her we might be branching out into home repairs. Think you could take a look after work?" Ray stared at him. "You serious about this home repair thing?" Gil crossed his arms. "Never been more serious. This neighborhood needs reliable repair services and we need the business. Thought we could start small, see how it goes." By lunchtime, Ray had 3 repair appointments lined up for the following week. Gil handed him a company credit card. "For parts and tools," he explained. "And Ray? We're partners on this home repair venture. 50-50 split." Ray was speechless. "Partnership?" That was more than he'd ever imagined. His phone buzzed with a text from Anna. "Danny can't stop talking about you. Thanks for being so kind to him. Dinner again soon?" Looking at the message, then at the company card in his hand, Ray felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Hope, real and substantial, taking root in his life again. All because he'd spent his last dollar on a shivering child. 6 months had passed since that cold winter night, when Ray had spent his last dollar on crackers for a shivering child. As Ray stood in the newly expanded Gil's Auto and Home Repair, he could hardly believe how much had changed. The shop had doubled in size, taking over the vacant space next door. One side still housed the car repair bays, while the other had become a workshop for home repair projects and a small retail area with parts and tools. A new sign hung proudly outside with Mendoza and Gil painted in bold letters. Ray ran his hand along the smooth counter they'd built themselves. The wood was reclaimed from an old barn, sanded and polished to a warm glow. It reminded him of how things could be transformed with enough care and attention. The bell above the door jingled, and Ray looked up to see Danny burst in, backpack bouncing. "Hey, Mr. Ray. We had a substitute teacher today, and he didn't know anything about engines, so I got to explain how they work to the whole class." The boy's face was flushed with excitement. Ray grinned. "That's so, and how'd you do?" He said I explained it better than the textbook. Danny dropped his backpack on the floor and headed straight for the small workbench Ray had set up for him in the corner. "Can I work on the radio today?" "Sure thing," Ray said. "Just make sure you wear the safety glasses." Danny had become a fixture at the shop after school. At first, he just watched Ray work, asking endless questions. But soon Ray had started teaching him basic repairs. How to change a faucet washer, fix a doorbell, rewire a lamp. The boy soaked up knowledge like a sponge. The door jingled again and Anna stepped in wearing her hospital scrubs. She'd been promoted to the medical records department 3 months ago. Better hours and better pay, though she still took weekend shifts at the grocery store occasionally. "How are my favorite men today?" she asked him. Dee dropping a kiss on Danny's head and a slightly longer one on Ray's lips. Ray felt the familiar warmth spread through him at her touch. They'd been officially dating for 4 months now, taking things slow for Danny's sake. But there was no denying they'd become a family of sorts, spending most evenings and weekends together. Just fine, Ray replied, squeezing her hand. How was work? Busy, she sighed. But good. Dr. Patel asked about you. Said his wife can't stop talking about how you fixed their furnace when no one else could figure out what was wrong. Ray smiled. It was still surprising how word had spread about their new business venture. What had started as a few small repair jobs had snowballed until they were booked solid for weeks in advance. They'd even had to hire 2 part-time assistants to keep up with demand. We should invite them for dinner sometime, Ray suggested. It's funny. I lived in the same building as Mrs. Patel for years, but never really knew her until that night. Anna nodded, understanding what he meant. That night had changed so many things. The shop phone rang and Ray answered it. Gil was calling from a job site across town. They'd taken to splitting duties, one of them manning the shop while the other handled house calls. Today was Ray's turn at the shop. How's the Hernandez plumbing job going? Ray asked. Fixed, Gil replied. Wasn't the water heater after all, just a clogged pipe. Saved them thousands. There was pride in Gil's voice. They'd built their reputation on honest work and fair prices. How's it looking for Friday? Friday was a big day. They were hosting an open house to officially celebrate the expansion. The whole neighborhood had been invited. Everything's on track, Ray assured him. Anna's sister is handling the food and I picked up the drinks this morning. After he hung up, Ray noticed Anna watching him with a soft expression. What? He asked. Nothing, she smiled. Just, you look happy, Ray. He realized she was right. The constant worry that had been his companion for so many years had faded, replaced by a quiet contentment. The shop door opened again, and a middle-aged couple walked in looking uncertain. Can we help you? Ray asked. Our furnace is making this awful banging noise, the woman explained. Someone at church recommended you folks, said you were honest and didn't overcharge. As Ray talked with them, scheduling a time for Gil to check out their furnace, he couldn't help reflecting on how things had unfolded. 6 months ago, he'd been walking home in the cold, dreading his empty apartment and emptier wallet. Now, he had a thriving business, a relationship that grew stronger each day, and a young boy who looked up to him like he hung the moon. Later that evening, at Anna's house, which had become more like home than his own apartment, Ray sat on the couch helping Danny with his science homework, while Anna prepared dinner. The domestic scene would have been unimaginable to him a year ago. Ray, Danny asked, looking up from his textbook. Can I ask you something important? Of course, Ray replied, noting the serious look on the boy's face. Are you going to be my new dad someday? The question caught Ray off guard. He glanced toward the kitchen, where Anna was stirring something on the stove, humming softly. Would that be okay with you? Ray asked carefully. Danny nodded vigorously. I think you'd be really good at it. You're already teaching me stuff and taking care of us. That's what dads do, right? Ray felt his throat tighten. That's part of it, yeah. But being a dad is a big responsibility. It means always being there no matter what. Like you are now, Danny said simply. From the kitchen doorway, Anna cleared her throat. Her eyes were glistening as she looked at them both. Ray realized she'd heard everything. Dinner's ready, she said softly. That night, after Danny had gone to bed, Ray and Anna sat on the porch swing, a blanket draped over their laps against the spring evening's chill. Stars peeked through the city's light pollution above them. So, Anna said, her head on Ray's shoulder. That was quite a conversation earlier. Ray took a deep breath. I've been thinking about it for a while now, about us, the three of us, and her voice was steady, but he could feel her heart beating faster where her body pressed against his. And I think Danny's right. We're already a family in all the ways that matter. Ray shifted to face her. I know it hasn't been that long, but when you know, you know. My wife used to say that about us, and she was right. Ray Mendoza, Anna said, her voice catching. Are you saying what I think you're saying? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. It wasn't fancy, a simple ring with a small diamond, but it had cost him 3 weeks of savings. He'd bought it that morning after weeks of planning. I am, he said, opening the box. Ana Morales, will you marry me? Her answer was in her kiss, fierce and tender all at once. When they finally pulled apart, both a little breathless, she whispered, Yes, 1,000 times yes. The Friday celebration took on new meaning. Though they kept the engagement news to themselves for the moment, wanting to tell Danny properly first, There was an extra glow to the evening as friends, neighbors, and customers filled the expanded shop. Mrs. Patel was there, beaming with pride as she told anyone who would listen how she'd known all along that Ray was special. Gil's wife brought her famous tamales. Even Ray's landlord, Mr. Chen, showed up with a bottle of good whiskey to toast the business's success. As Ray looked around at the crowded shop, at the business he was now part owner of, at Anna laughing with some hospital colleagues, at Danny proudly showing his friends the workbench where he was learning to fix things, he felt a sense of wonder. All of it had started with one simple choice. $1 spent on a cold night, not out of calculation or expectation of return, but simply because a child was cold and hungry, and Ray couldn't walk away. Later, as the party wound down, Gil pulled Ray aside. "Remember when you first started working here?" the older man asked. "You told me you became a mechanic because you liked fixing broken things." Ray nodded. "I remember." Gil clapped him on the shoulder. "Turns out you're pretty good at fixing broken lives, too, including your own." As Ray drove Anna and a sleepy Danny home that night, snow began to fall again. The first snow of spring, large flakes drifting lazily through the streetlights. Danny pressed his face to the window, watching in wonder. "It's just like the night we met," he murmured, half asleep. Anna reached across the seat to take Ray's hand. Her touch was warm, and the diamond on her finger caught the light from the passing street lamps. "Full circle," she said quietly. Ray squeezed her hand, thinking of the journey that had brought them here, from emptiness to fullness, from solitude to family, from one last dollar to riches he could never have imagined. "No," he said, smiling at the woman who would be his wife and the boy who would be his son, "just the beginning."